Don't rely on Turnitin for plagiarism detection. And I'm going to tell you why. Because a lot of times, many of us rush down quickly to put our work into Turnitin and look forward to seeing 5% or 10% or maximum of 15%. And we excitedly assume that that work that comes with maybe 10% is not plagiarized. That is a blatant lie and a very dangerous assumption. On the contrary, what Turnitin does is to check similarity reports. And let's take it one after the other. Turnitin is one of the mostly used tools in educational sector and in academic world today. It is built essentially to help students and educators to improve their academic writing, to also improve how they avoid plagiarism. So essentially what that tool does is to help you avoid and prevent plagiarism and not to detect it. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why Turnitin is useful, what it does, and why you should not rely on it to detect plagiarism, because it does not detect plagiarism. That might sound shocking and revealing, maybe. So, what does Turnitin do? Turnitin takes your work that you have input into it and check it against existing literature. There are pools of information and sources and resources in the database of Turnitin, which include websites, books, journal articles, include the internet sources, and various other sources. So these are what constitute the database of Turnitin. So when you put your work into Turnitin, what it does is to check that work, all the sections of your work, against every other existing literature, including the assignment you yourself had submitted previously, probably to your school or your institution or your department, which has gone or has not gone through Turnitin but has been submitted and acknowledged. So when it's coming out, Turnitin will give out reports about sections of your work that match existing text. So in other words, what Turnitin does for you is to check textual content, the part of your work that are text, against other text that are in other works out there. So, which essentially mean and imply that even a correctly cited work can still trigger similarity matches. It means that your work that you have cited properly, that you have written with no intent of plagiarizing, can still potentially be flagged as plagiarized by Turnitin. And that tells you the limit of what Turnitin can do. So when it dictates those sections, even the words that you paraphrase, that you write in your own words, Turnitin will still flag it. Because every statement we are making, someone else has made it somewhere in the past. So it comes out with that similarity report to look at areas of your work that have similarity. And that is why we say that Turnitin only dictates originality and similarity percentage of your work. So those similarity and originality percentage does not mean that your work is free of plagiarism or is free from copying existing text, or it does not also mean that that work is full of plagiarized content, even with those different colors that you see. Don't forget, when Turnitin comes out with his report, there are a couple of colors you will see. You will see white, which suggests that your work is not, Turnitin does not detect any issue with your work. You will see red, which are sections where potentially your work sections of your work are copied probably from other existing literature or have similarity matches with other existing text out there. You will see purple, you will see green. All of these colors have meanings. And what they do is to look at areas of your work or sections of your work or part of your work that have similarity or potential similarity with other existing text in other works that have been published. Maybe in websites, in books, in journal articles, on the internet, or wherever. So far, it matches any section in the database, in the sources that are in the database of Turnitin. That section of your work is going to be flagged. So, what are the things that Turnitin will not do for you? Turnitin will never detect a plagiarized work. So, what it does is to open up your mind to see areas where you need to work on the sections that it has flagged. So, if you use direct quotes, Turnitin is going to detect it with the source. Turnitin is going to flag it that this quote, this voice is resounding from somewhere. It's a sound of another author, of another person, or another scholar from another source. And it's going to bring it out. Even your own words that are not related to any text or that are not even paraphrased, Turnitin might detect or might show that it has similarity matches with other words out there. So this is why it is your responsibility, first of all, to take and pay full attention to your work. Every line of your work, you need to pay full attention to it. So, what are the things Turnitin will not do for you? And why you should not rely on it to detect plagiarism? 1. If you had watched my previous videos on APA references style or MLA references style, you will have found out my comments about you reconciling your in-text citation with your reference list. That every source, every material you use in your in-text must reflect in the reference list. Any discrepancy between those two, between your in-text and your reference list, might potentially mean you have plagiarized some part of your work, or that your work is machine generated. So I said that if you had used 30 references in your in-text, all of those 30 must reflect in your reference list, and nothing new must also come out in the reference list. So that means there has to be that similarity, that convergence between in-text and reference list. Turnitin will not detect that for you. Turnitin will not say, oh, you use 30 here, you use 10 here. That is your responsibility. You cannot outsource that. You have to take responsibility for that. The other thing I'm going to say, which Turnitin will not do for you, is to show who authors what. For example, if you have used ChatGPT, don't forget ChatGPT can mess up your work, especially in assigning wrongly authors to text and text to authors, wherein it gives a book that is written by James and assigns John to it, or it assigns John or James to a book that is written by Joshua. So that is one of the shortcomings of a tool like ChatGPT. And if you, as a researcher, as a student, you don't take your time to find out who is the original author of that text, or what is the title of the work written by James, you will just copy from ChatGPT and input into your reference list or your in-text and assume that is correct. But Turnitin is not going to detect that for you. That is where you can't rely on Turnitin, because if you put a wrong text for a right author or a right author for a wrong text, it is plagiarism. If you have 30 in-text citation and 10 reference list, it is plagiarism. So you have to begin to understand what plagiarism is and why Turnitin cannot help you in that regard, and why you have to take responsibility for every section, every line, every sentence, and every paragraph that you use in your work. So this is the limit of Turnitin. And this is why even what you do that is correct, that is properly cited, can be flagged. And that's why sit down, understand what you have written, explain to yourself whether what you have written makes any sense or whether what you have written matches what is out there. And when you do that, because Turnitin does not dictate intent, it is text. Again, Turnitin does not also detect non-textual content or section of your work. For example, data. Only text will it relate with and check similarity matches. But every other non-textual part of your work, Turnitin does not detect it. So that means if you have copied the data from somewhere and you just change a few things, Turnitin might not dictate that because it's not text. So take responsibility for all non-textual part of your work. Take responsibility for your reference and your in-text, how you try as much as possible to reconcile them. Also take responsibility for the authorship and the titles of work and how you reconcile them, such that author A does not belong to text that is written by author B. And that is how far we're going to go on this video. I hope you find it very useful. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on the notification button, share, like, and make your comment. If you have any comment, put it in the description button below and I will respond to it. See you next time.